Welcome to Dadograms. I'm Jason M. Garrett, and I created Dadograms to teach my kids and all of you how to win in life. And that's exactly what this one's about. As you can imagine, as two retired Navy pilots, my wife and I are both pretty competitive people, and we think that's a good thing. But not everyone seems to value competition quite like we do. In fact, it seems like kids these days don't learn the importance of it from their parents or in school. In fact, they sometimes learn the opposite. In 2014, my entire family ran the Runway 5K race at the Marine Corps base in Hawaii. Our kids were still little. The youngest was in a jog stroller, and contrary to the plan, he insisted on pushing his own stroller instead of riding the entire 5,000 meters. And because of that, our competitive little family came in dead last. Last place out of thousands of competitors. Now, we didn't necessarily expect to win, but last, really? Us? No way. So as soon as we crossed the finish line, my wife and I grabbed our stuff, escorted our kids in a beeline right for the car. All we wanted to do was go home and pretend that race had never happened. Now, as we passed the medals tent, our youngest daughter, just 5 years old, stopped and said, "Wait, Dad, we have to get our medals." And that's when I explained to her something that I hoped she would never forget. I told her that we don't get participation medals. If she wanted a medal, she'd have to compete for it and win. She heard me and she got quiet. And when my daughter, that particular daughter, gets quiet, that means she's thinking, she's processing, she's storing the information in long-term memory. And I think that one little moment stuck with her. And I'll tell you why I think that in just a few moments. But first, let me take you further back. Back when I was in high school, back in the late 1980s. Back then, lots of students wore Letterman's jackets. They were a big deal back then. They meant something. You had earned the letter, you sewed it on your jacket, and all those placement medals you won in competition, you sewed them on too, for all to see. These jackets were proof you had worked hard, you had competed, and you had won. Whether it was football, band, wrestling, debate, drama, you could walk down the school hallway and read a young person's story just by the way they stitched it into their jackets. This wasn't just about pride, it was about inspiration, because the younger kids would think those jackets were pretty cool and they'd want one too. Now, in case any of you are wondering, no, that wasn't this guy at all. I was never a medal wearer. I didn't start getting good at anything until I was pretty much at the end of my senior year. I was a pretty late bloomer. But I remember those jackets, and I remember my friends who wore them. And I had one friend in particular, his entire chest was covered with medals. And when he would walk down the hall, that whole thing would jingle and jangle. It sounded like an armored knight walking down the hallway or something. It was definitely one of those memorable things that this day I can still remember after 30 some years. It truly was inspiring. Now, fast forward a few decades, and what do we wear now? Nothing. We don't wear medals anymore. We don't celebrate visible achievement. Instead, we kind of downplay it. To display it might seem like we're bragging or showing off, acting as if we're superior to others. And I'm not just saying that about others. To be truthful, I feel that sometimes. I feel a huge sense of modesty for all that I've done. I've done lots of amazing things in my life, but I still hesitate to talk about any of them, even though I know I should. And I'm starting to, because it matters. Because my kids need to hear it from me. Because someone out there watching this video might actually be inspired by it too. It seems we've shifted away from a culture of visible legacy to one of digital validation. That just isn't the same. Medals have been replaced with likes, follows, and kind of empty affirmations. But it's important to remember, visible achievement works. It always has. Napoleon Bonaparte famously said, "A soldier will fight long and hard for a bit of colored ribbon." And in our military today, that hasn't changed. That's why the military doesn't hand out cash bonuses for valor. They pin medals on your chest. Because medals mean something. They build identity. They preserve legacy. They say, this mattered. Now, this datagram isn't just about nostalgia or old jackets, school pride, and letters and medals. It's about something bigger. It's about restoring a culture where kids are taught that hard work matters, achievement is earned, and real success is worth celebrating. That's why we encourage our kids to earn things and display them, not for vanity, not for bragging rights, but to honor the journey it took to get there. We try and create tradition, and we make room for earned pride. Because if you never celebrate winning, you'll eventually forget why it's worth striving for. Oh, and do you think my daughter took to heart her dad's words about that race a long time ago? Remember how she asked for a participation medal? Well, she never got one. But she's got something better. She's got a competitive fire. Now she's a rising senior in high school, and if you look under her bed, you'll find buckets of medals. Far too many to hang up anywhere. She's one of the fastest girls in the state of Florida in the 800 meter, the 1600 meter, the 3200 meter, and her best race of all, the 5000 meter. That's right, a 5K. She's fiercely competitive. She loves to run, and every race she runs reminds me, this is what pride looks like when it's earned. In fact, in the sport of cross country, she was named 2024 All-American. And as a dad who has never liked running, I have to admit, she inspires me more than I ever imagined. Way to go, Addison. Keep up the great work. Dad's proud of you. For all you out there, don't fear competition. Don't be embarrassed to win, and don't be embarrassed to lose. I've done plenty of both in my time. Everyone starts somewhere, and if you're not even in a race, you'll never place. And when you do ultimately win, wear the recognition, display it, speak about it, encourage others with your victory, because achievement should be celebrated. That's what makes us competitive, and ultimately, that's what makes us great. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel, and go back and play another episode of Dadograms. The info I share is timeless. This will serve you as well now as the day I made it. Until next time, go forth and conquer.